It's the Tyler's Place Podcast, a podcast by brothers for brothers, brought to you by the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite Southern Jurisdiction. Now, from the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C., here's your host, Maynard Edwards, 32nd Degree.
Welcome to the Tyler's Place Podcast. I'm your host, Maynard Edwards. Let's get a couple of pieces of business out of the way. First, the Scottish Rite Journal app. The latest issue of the journal is in your mailbox, but it's also on your smartphone or tablet. SR Chirp app, which is the Scottish Rite messaging app that lets you connect with brothers all over the Southern Jurisdiction. And, of course, the Tyler's Place Podcast app, where you can listen to all the Tyler's Place episodes in one simple place. It's for Android and iPhone. All of those apps are free and in your app store right now. Make sure you go grab them. The email address, as always, podcast@scottishrite.org. And I love hearing from you guys. So if you get a minute, shoot me an email, say hi. I would love to hear from you. Tons to get to this month. And we're going to start in an unusual way by jumping right into the VMAP Minute.
Time for the VMAP Minute with Brother Jeff Maynor, 32nd Degree.
Usually when Brother Jeff Maynor joins us, it's to talk about the Valley Membership Achievement Project, better known as VMAP. But, as many of you know, Jeff is from the Valley of Baton Rouge, and that region has been hit very hard with some severe flooding. We did a Tyler's Place special report a couple of weeks ago, and now to update us, Jeff joins us. Jeff, give us the update. How are things going in Baton Rouge right now?
Well, there are a wide variety of people's situations at this point. Some of the people who the water went down the earliest, they've completely cleaned their homes out. Their homes are dry. They're basically just waiting on the city to start issuing permits, and they can put their walls back up. You've got other brothers where I was talking to one guy. The water did not actually go down at his house to the point where he could get to it and start working on it until about 4 days ago. There have been so many great volunteers with so many organizations who have been down here helping people clean their houses out. And then, of course, our Masonic brothers from all over the country have. Some of them have been here to help with their hands. Many of them have put together semi-trucks of supplies of needed things like drywall and mold control spray and sent them over here to be distributed to members. I can't say enough about the help we've gotten, and especially, our Scottish Rite brothers in both the northern jurisdiction and the southern jurisdiction have been very ready with aid and assistance that we've been able to really help a lot of people.
What kind of shape are the Masonic buildings in at this point?
The Scottish Rite building here in Baton Rouge, which also was the home of one Blue Lodge, had somewhere, depending on where you were on the property, between 3.5 and 4 feet of water in it. Our Rite Care Clinic, which was actually elevated on piers, still ended up with 12 inches of water in it. We've been able to get those kids housed at LSU for this semester, so treatment is ongoing. The Scottish Rite lost basically all of our costumes, most of our props. We're having our first Valley meeting since the flood on Monday, and we're going to talk about what our path forward looks like.
You guys aren't meeting in that damaged Scottish Rite building, are you?
No, we're gonna meet at one of the local Blue Lodges that wasn't damaged.
Obviously, a lot of work still to be done, but what is the overall feeling of the brothers and the folks in the community in general?
There's a feeling of moving forward. One thing that would really help is the areas where the trash crews have actually been able to get through and pick up all of the stuff piled at the edge of the road. The people I've talked to in those areas said, it made a huge difference that day when I drove back into my neighborhood and there weren't 10-foot-high piles of stuff everywhere.
We are Freemasons. It's our job. It is our calling to want to help. So down to the brass tacks, what is it that you need most of all? Is it raw material? Is it hands to work? Is it cash? What will be most useful to you at this point?
So, by far the easiest thing to both manage and help people with is money. Monetary donations definitely are the easiest thing to manage. You can go to a brother whose house is ruined and you say, okay, what do you need? And he says, well, I need about 100 sheets of sheetrock and I need, paint to repaint this and I really need I lost my generator and they haven't hooked my power back up, so I need a new generator. Okay, great. Here's $1,200. Go buy all of that stuff. The next thing is raw building materials and hands. They're probably even. If you've got free time and want to come down and you've got some sort of, ability to swing a hammer, and want to come down and help, that's still needed.
Jeff Maynor from the Valley of Baton Rouge, thanks for the update on our friends and brothers there in Louisiana. Guys, if you want to help, the easiest thing to do is to email me at podcast@scottishrite.org. I will get the information to you where you can send donations. Your own Grand Lodges probably have funds set up already as well. You may want to investigate that. But if you email me, podcast@scottishrite.org, I'll get you the information directly from Jeff. Jeff, while I've got you, if you could slip on your VMAP committee chairman hat for just a second, any advice to guys just getting back to work from a long summer of refreshment and opening that VMAP workbook up for the first time?
Well, look, I want to start our VMAP Minute by giving a shout-out to the guys at the Valley of Aiken, South Carolina. I received a copy of their very first Valley newsletter that they put together as part of the VMAP program, and I want to tell those guys that it looks really great, and they did a really fine job, and I'm just impressed that they took that step. They said it's the first one they've ever done, and they're planning on building on it, and it looks really great. So congratulations to my brothers in Aiken. Fine job, guys. The rest of VMAP, we've got a new workbook that's going to be coming out for 2017, but we've also got a revised 2016 workbook. The Supreme Council met an off-year session recently, and the VMAP committee, based on the suggestions from brothers at the workshop, proposed a couple of things that, we thought would make the 2016 workbook a little bit better, just because we had this immediate feedback from the workshops, and they approved most of those changes. So we're going to be rolling out and people asked for this repeatedly at the workshops, we are going to roll out an electronically fillable workbook. So you will not have to put together 15 different handwritten pages. It will be electronically fillable. You just check all the little boxes.
Hey, VMAP of the 21st century. That's pretty great to hear.
I stress this a lot, but I really can't tell you how important it is that if your Valley is participating in VMAP, even if you don't reach those achievement levels, how critical it is to turn that workbook back in. With the new electronic workbook, it's easier, but that's also going to give us the ability to export statistical data, and we're going to be able to look at really easily what valleys are doing, what they're not doing. Hey, look, this valley that had this great program did these three things that hardly anybody did. Maybe we should, roll out best practices around those. Now, the other thing is we've got a very important Scottish Rite Day coming up that is part of your VMAP requirements, which is the Feast of Tishri. A lot of valleys, Tishri kind of moves around a little bit. It's on the Jewish calendar. It usually falls sometime in September or October, and so a lot of valleys choose September or October to celebrate the Feast of Tishri. If you've never celebrated the Feast of Tishri before, if you've got the Scottish Rite Forms and Traditions books, there's an outline in there that you can use. There's also a number of different valleys have sent in programs. We've posted some of them on the Freemason Network. But if you're really not sure, hey, how do we celebrate the Feast of Tishri? We've never done it. We want to start this year. We know it's coming up. Shoot us an email at vmap@scottishrite.org, and we'll give you a couple example programs and some advice on how you can have that first Feast of Tishri.
Doing good work and having some fun, that's what it's all about. Jeff Maynor adding some VMAP advice to his update on the recovery efforts in Baton Rouge.
Got a question about VMAP? Send them to vmap@scottishrite.org. All questions get answered, and your question may even appear on the next Tyler's Place podcast.
Benedict Arnold, war hero, traitor, and Freemason. Was he expelled for his treason? Mike Troy is a historian and blogger, and he joins us now to talk about Benedict Arnold. Mike, give us a little detail on Arnold the man, if you would.
Well, he certainly was a traitor, and he certainly deserves some of the wrath he gets for that, but he really did some amazing things before he turned to the English. He lived in Connecticut, not from a particularly prominent family, and both of his parents died when he was pretty young. So he, at a very young age, had to step up and take charge of his family. Before his father died, he joined the Connecticut militia and fought in the French and Indian War. When the American Revolution started, he was still a member of the militia and led one of the first companies up to the siege of Boston after Lexington and Concord. From there, he, along with Ethan Allen, led the invasion of Fort Ticonderoga, which was actually critical to the beginning part of the Revolution because it gave George Washington the cannons he needed to eventually take Boston from the British. While he was off fighting in all these far-off places, a lot of other men who were hanging around the Continental Congress or with the commander-in-chief were getting promoted ahead of him, and he was always very frustrated that basically these people that were sitting around in comfortable offices were getting promoted while the people out fighting were pretty much ignored and passed over for promotion.
Did his frustration lead to treachery?
I think it certainly contributed to it. After the Battle of Saratoga, he was put in charge of the city of Philadelphia as the military leader of the city. There, he thought he might really be able to get ahead himself a little bit because he was in Philadelphia in the seat of Congress with, all the members of the Continental Congress that have been promoting all their buddies over the years, that he might actually be able to accomplish something there. Unfortunately, it didn't go well for him. I guess had the good fortune, maybe it was bad fortune, to fall in love and get married to a young woman in Philadelphia named Peggy Shippen, who was 18 years old at the time. He was pushing 40. Peggy was from a Loyalist family, and his association with the Shippens and with Loyalists in general while he was in Philadelphia earned him a lot of enmity among the Patriots. They brought a court-martial against him and some military investigations, which he found very frustrating to defend, received a letter of reprimand from General Washington, which really cut him to the core. He kind of thought Washington was somebody who really was in his corner all the time, and to get that reprimand, I think, really hurt him. He kind of felt like the Americans were turning on him. He was, as I said, married to a woman now who was a very strong Loyalist and was probably talking to him about how much he was getting, taken by these Americans and that he should really, look to the British.
So perhaps a pretty girl who he marries, she's a Loyalist, she's whispering in his ear. I mean, those ladies can be pretty persuasive.
They can, and I think we should not discount that. I think that was a big part of what did it to him. And he saw in Philadelphia, I think, the way the government was working, that it was kind of mob rule, and the in crowd got to do whatever they wanted to do, and he was not in the in crowd.
Give us some of the specifics of his treachery.
He became commandant of West Point, which at the time was a really critical fort that gave control of the entire region of the Hudson River and the Hudson Valley to the Americans. He took that position with the intent of turning it over to the British. He had already decided to betray his country at that time. He made deliberate efforts to weaken the defenses there or not build them up. And there's actually some speculation that he was going to allow the British takeover at a time when George Washington was visiting the fort, so he was actually going to try to make George Washington part of the American losses. And George Washington had a standing order that he was to be hung on sight if anybody ever got a hold of him.
What do we know about Benedict Arnold the Freemason?
Well, he had been a Mason since well before the war. He was a member of the New Haven Lodge in Connecticut. And I know he visited several lodges during his military career throughout the colonies. So I think he was a fairly active member. Interestingly, the British officer that he conspired with to betray America, John Andre, was also a Mason, and I wonder if that might have helped him make that connection. Also, Sir Henry Clinton, who was commander of the British forces at the time, was also a Mason. So I don't know if that helped give him some level of comfort that he would be treated honorably when he switched sides or what.
We're, of course, left to speculate quite a bit to his motives, obviously, but I mean, the issue I find is that it's really hard to find any good information on Benedict Arnold because he's so hated. It's almost as though there's an effort to sort of erase him from the history books.
That is true. There are actually several monuments at Revolutionary War battlefields praising what he did. They leave his name off of it. They say a general did this, an American general or something like that. His name has actually just been stricken from history almost.
Was Benedict Arnold expelled from Masonry?
I know that his home lodge in Connecticut did have his name obliterated, and actually several of the lodges he even visited around the country removed his name from the visitor rolls. They had it crossed out and wrote traitor over it. Whether he had any better luck as a Mason when he moved to England with the English lodges, I don't know. But the Americans certainly removed him from considering him a fellow Mason. He is buried in London in a church in relative obscurity. I know that there was somebody purchased a fairly nice tombstone for him.
Mike Troy, historian and blogger. You can read his blog at unlearnedhistory.blogspot.net, and he's working on a new podcast that should be out in the next couple of weeks, and we'll give you the details on that when it launches. Up next, we talk to Illustrious Brother David Glattly to discuss the importance of the DeMolay.
Masonic news and interviews from around the country and around the world. This is the Tyler's Place podcast.
Does your lodge host a DeMolay chapter? When was the last time you went to one of their events or their meetings? It's important. And joining us now to talk about why these young men are so important to the Scottish Rite is Illustrious Brother David Glattly, who's the Orient of New Jersey's active member of the Supreme Council. And as I understand it, Brother David, you've just been elected to become the Sovereign Grand Commander of the Northern Masonic jurisdiction.
Yes, the nominated